organized sector is growing, the unorganized sector is declining. And this is the case with many other sectors, whether it be the pressure cooker industry, whether it be the FMCG, whether it be the leather goods industry, luggage industry, and so on. The data seems to suggest that the unorganized sector is declining. So you're representing the declining sector by a rising sector.
Got it.
So therefore your GDP shows a rise, but actually GDP is not rising by so much. So my argument is that on an average in the last time since demonetization, the economy is growing only in 1.5%, 2%, 2.5%. It's not going more than that. So therefore, we are not yet a $3.8 trillion economy. We're still only $2.5 trillion.
What?
Yeah.
2.5 trillion?
Because you see the unorganized sector is declining. Only the organized sector is rising. So therefore, the rate of growth instead of being 7% is more like 2%.
Yeah.
And especially during demonetization, you can see how wrong our data was. The demonetization showed that November, December, January, February, March, 5 months, the economy had come to a standstill. And, even agriculture had declined. The farmers could not bring their produce to the market. Vegetables were rotting in the field, flowers were rotting in the field, and so on. So in my demonetization book, I've given the data that in the Azadpur Mandi in Delhi, which is the biggest mandi in North India, less than half the produce was coming. The rest was in the fields or rotting, and so on. And you had pictures of people throwing milk on the roads. You had pictures of tomato being thrown on the roads and Shimla mirch being thrown on the roads, etc. Because it was going for 1 rupee a kilo. So even agriculture had declined, but the government says agriculture did very well. Similarly, I went in the month of March to Gwalior and I went to the local market there, and the market had not opened till 12 o'clock. And they were playing cards, the shopkeeper. So I said, why have you not opened? They said, there are no customers coming. We went to the labor chalk at 1 o'clock, and at the labor chalk, it was full. So I said, usually you people leave if you don't get work by 9:30 or so. They said, we have not been getting any work, so we are willing to stay and get even 1/4 of day or half day work. So they were standing there. So in other words, the economy was down for 5 months. There was negative growth. And yet the government's data shows the maximum rate of growth for that decade was 8% in the demonetization year.
Yeah.
Whereas it was negative growth. Because 5 months there was negative. Only for 7 months there was positive. And this negative was very large. You even saw luxury car sales decline.
Yeah.
You saw a demand for storage increase because factories were not able to sell their produce. And the unorganized sector did not have money to pay wages, did not have money to buy raw material, and therefore they had shut down. So it was clear evidence that the economy was negative, but the official data was showing it as 8% rate of growth. So you can tell how much error there is.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I've been pointing out is that what we do is we project from the previous year to the next year using high frequency data.
What is that, sir?
High frequency data means that which comes every month, the data. So that's called high frequency. So low frequency will mean that it'll come only sometimes. High frequency means it comes very regularly. So like railway ticket sale, air sale, travel, freight loading, and things like that, which is, telephone connections and things like that. Now, if you look at the latest data for Q1 of this year, you find that they say that we are using the high frequency data to project. Then you go to the table for high frequency data. There you find that out of 22 items, only 6 had any positive growth. Remaining 16 had negative. Now, with 16 being negative, how can the rate of growth be 7.8%? By projecting with using high frequency data. So therefore, there is a problem. Either you say that, no, we have got some other data also, which we are using. It's not this only high frequency data. But in the write-up, you say we are using the high frequency data in Annexure B. And Annexure B shows that actually 6 out of 22 are growing, 16 are declining. So how can it be that the rate of growth has gone up? So just to complete, so demonetization damaged the unorganized sector. And next year you implemented the faulty GST. That again damaged the unorganized sector. So even though you've kept the unorganized sector out of GST, so if you have a turnover of 50 lakh and below, then you don't come under GST. If you're providing services worth 40 lakhs and less, then you don't come under it. If you are having a turnover up to 1.5 crore, then you come under the composition scheme, which is a very simplified scheme. So you largely kept the unorganized sector out of the GST. And yet GST has damaged this sector. because it has benefited the organized sector at the expense of the unorganized sector. So therefore, that came as the second shock to the unorganized sector. The third shock came next year when the NBFC crisis, the non-banking finance companies crisis, because they provide loans, etc., to the small and the unorganized sector. So that crisis came. So three shocks came one after the other. And then in 2020, 21, you had the pandemic. And again, the lockdown, it impacted the unorganized sector very badly. From the cities, people migrated to the rural areas, production came down and so on. So four shocks. So this idea that we can project from previous year to the next year, but the next year is a shock year. So how can you project from the previous year? That data doesn't apply. And then the next shock came. Then the next shock came. So the data goes wrong because you're projecting the wrong data to the year of the shock, and then from the year of the shock to the next year. So you're always overestimating. So that is where the problem is, because if the rate of growth is healthy this year, it doesn't mean in the demonetization year it was healthy. So you cannot project from this to, and that's why, because you're projecting from the wrong data, therefore you got an 8% rate of growth during demonetization, whereas actually it should be negative. And then from that 8% you're projecting next year to the GST year, when again it will show a higher rate of growth. Even though because of the GST damage, the unorganized sector declined, the rate of growth fell. And then you again project it to the NBFC. So the whole chain becomes, that's why I keep saying we are growing at only 1.5 or 2%.